Sangaya Namo Guru Be Namo Buddhaya Namo Dharamaya Namo Sangaya Namo Guru Be Namo Buddha Namo Dharamaya Namo Ayo Kande Lai Je Do Kane Ra Kai Sho Sa Bon De Chon Zhen Xue Ye Bo Ge Ye Lo San Zhang Se Dan Jie Mo Ne De Xie So So Liu Ye Nan Kan Sen Jie Ben De 的东张接受希望的每天的白天。大学天将如在之别也joy je me do 다게 추주를 집에 소남진 종로 변제 상계 로벌쇼 제단 소제 종남라 장주 바도 다네 잡도 다게 추주를 집에 소남진 종로 변제 상계 로벌쇼 제단 소제 종남라 장주 바도 다네 잡도 다게 추주를 집에 소남진 종로 변제 상계
심지어 담시에도 터절라는 거 양다고 너가 선지 공부를 받지는 게 더봐. 뒤치도 담배 쇠세님의 군을 정유스 마다 쉬마든지 세단 생발시.
Let me remind every one of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate the highest form of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this Lamrim discourse on the stages of path leading to enlightenment by Manjushri Lama Tsongkhapa. Allow me to read about a couple of pages from this Lamrim Chemo, the great Lamrim, volume number 2 in the English translation of the Lamrim Chemo, page 157, to give you the blessing of lineage oral transmission followed by explanation.
현재 남이 제용 지바바도 메버로 보바네 마도 이메소 통주이 예배니 이시신 예보용소 용도 거와데 자와마로 지지 치마메다 바다니 메베싱스네 드베네 베템보냐 바당 세당제나가를 디제 나라 딘제 장배장 딘제니 쇠바당 자시제 중 수네 봉화의 진배 진배 뒤종 미도라서바데 주주레 세당 수무 심자나 이네 시원님 민중 가서 대화하며 돌아 니명 제대면 주로 건다 노라당 꽃대에 진지대라 대저바다 자네 가라데비 제봉 대라서바 그디 예자시 조바 요 조라 저진베 되자데 메젠도노 초데네 바테네 가 예반 예소 예라레 저 초예메 예신도 냥저노 젠제젠요 삼보나 메데서 와달 예저저 초예스 메세네 동에 저다 벤베 동조 지주와 这个的这东呢，龙年着我的去查到真着把里娘把就是到我经我心北洋娘。咱西大个啥的就叫特别没这样式儿弄动嘛，就是偏都那个什么了，那老娘的，偏也是那蒙不的，就是特别特别的那空些别人说到的老劲儿，东西牛多钱不要钱别，也把钱不钱别，下是你。để cho thế là lao bao chỉ cho yêu đồ thế này này rằng cái đồ thế này này nói gì đó đó cái thế đấy cái này thế thế này cho ta chỉ bu suy suy bây giờ xong rồi thế đó là rồi bây giờ mình nó cho để cho nó nghe bắt để bao nhiêu cái công việc sao thế nó chung lấy cái đó đều mình sẽ bắt đầu cái đó để thế sẽ lên thì nó rồi cái công việc cái sự bắt thế là như vậy thôi ngon được tao là go to nó sẽ bắt công việc là biết đâu công việc tao bây giờ như thế này dùng để cho做全部去也上级nghe bà sang gì nghe bà mình nghe bà ta thì number mình bị xong nghe bà mình rồi thì sẽ thì ta đi với đi mình mà ta phải bà ta nghe bà là sao bà chỉ biết đi bà ni phải bà ta nghe bà là nếu bà chỉ biết đi bà ni mình sẽ bà lấy xin số thì cho yêu mình nó sẽ xong bà ta hiện để nam đi đi mình và chỉ sẽ bà chính xác 예자민 좀나 대장대 대게 샤와메 베죠 원자 남이 사와 샤와 이제 바탕으로 예자 조바니 가와 소바 바니 예주 해동래 셰바 몽데 윤제라 고반데 별로다 타베쇼 보다 상상 당라마라 소바라 셰제레 셰도 셰지 나제제 바소 데벨롭드레 셰바 샤와 셰베 라베 솜 다 대샤 다 들이 신종대 대샤 다 그래서 공주 계산 중요하죠 다 도커랑 같이 중요해 다 인도 가가 얘는 신도 공유를 공주에는 되게 야 롱된 에너지 하시고 막 단도 타로 매주 되고 말이지
Geshe read from the bottom of page 157 to page 159 to give us the blessing of oral transmission of the teaching. And so now I started to give the explanation here. As we have been talking about the destructive nature of anger, how anger can destroy so much of our virtues or positive energy. And what does that mean? We already discussed different ways of understanding that. And in the sutras, we find statements pertaining to the destructive nature of the anger and in terms of destroying our accumulated virtues. And what Geshe just explained is that it is rather difficult for us to understand the precise destructive nature of the anger without depending upon the validity or the authenticity of Buddha's own words. This is what we call extremely hidden reality or phenomenon, right? It is such a subtle hidden reality that we cannot access the truth just on our own. We have to rely upon the validity of Buddha's own words.
소스베기 겨도 먹고 시게 남이 가사디 미겨 먹고 시니 에네 비녀알 비게 가사 유령을 근데 자착 봐서 가지 능은 채라 유령 본용 거야 셔거레스 아니 현재 남이 이동 뭐 있는 빠드만 조야고 되게 지하고 고급 정도 그래 스타디 되게 피디니가 벤다 디 단데 뮤즈와 네바 이어와서야 되더라 저 트레이닝이 괜찮은 생통이 되더라 다 지도니가 매서로 다 뮤즈 너 매게도 소소 트와지 근데 뭐 이제 현달게 두마다는 소지 요거 매신다게 주고 제가 다 되게 다데 님이 좀 도리는 마도 님이데 도리는 간지 소소 배경에서 그다음에 뭐 등에 잡으면 세면 용거야다 현달에다가 나시게는 남이도 뭐 지야 리뷰도 좀 애딩을 내고야 거기 나신이 뭉시그레스 다 뒤인지대 뒤인보다 마도 님이 있었다 근데 최근에 시베 님이 들다
With regards to the destructive nature of anger, we talked about its faults or problems, if you will, categorizing it in terms of visible outcomes, what we can really witness, so to speak, and in terms of invisible outcomes, something that will happen after our death, so in future lives, something we can see now. And so in terms of visible one, as we can see, if we get really mad and we are kind of in the fight with someone, who, is more powerful than we are, then of course we can see how the violence can be so destructive, even physically, to each other, and probably we get beaten down. But nonetheless, the anger itself it really destroys so much of our own virtues, and which is like, say, in terms of creating this tremendous negativities that can precipitate our rebirth in bad migrations in our next life, where the suffering is unimaginable, and suffering is unimaginable in terms of intensity, in terms of the duration of time, so that's the invisible outcome of anger. And not only do we ourselves have to experience that as we get mad or angry, but we also might, instigate another person to get mad and angry, right? That's what happens, right? So they will react to that. And now we also contributed to their destruction of the virtues, and they, would experience this unimaginable suffering in bad migrations.
다 통주님이 이해경에 냐무지 용아 다 냐무지 용아도 가와다 대세월 다 간지 소수 샘프게 희기 좋아하신 끼버디야 들에 가와 냐무지 용토 말시라와 용아다 가와다 대왕아 윤직징 아니 치마면도 봐도 시다 근데 끼버디 대샤는 코로랑 그랬을 코로사선 틱타랑 게다 끼버다 제타라
맞아요.
시다디 ngari jiksia direwa chima moda seda kodo bangla za tine ma hienko khaga do sewa gumde gen tine ma dewa buti ni yong shor diko kodo to sha ti ba kodo pige shuk dege ine dunge ba motu ni mongo ba dunge kala dewa ta ga do res tana pige ni ji da megu shene da ni mogu ni shene pige kodo sa da ni kugo mo direwa
no
dire semne di menepe temba nyambata sita namjime yabori na ta bisha so jina eniko kondo sai nega la namju ganga thoshi en sim mede ba sa sig so ji namju menda namju jodo aje mare o dira no o dire shedan chen nganji ge o dali dire yuni thaw mandalas
Continuing with the faults of anger, in this life, as we can see, that we could be, happy at this very moment. We have peace of mind. As soon as anger arises in the mind, it steals that joy and happiness and peace. And now, we lose everything, right? The mental peace and happiness and joy. And that's what we ourselves can experience and witness in this lifetime. Then, of course, this anger precipitates this tremendous suffering in our next life. So these are all, the faults of getting angry. And even, with things like, say, if we get angry, I mean, we can't really sleep, well, right? It disturbs our sleep pattern as well, and so that is part of it. And then also we lose what we call the stability of the mind. Maybe usually we are a nice human being, kind of a well-disciplined, well-mannered, but then as soon as anger comes up, now, we lose that whole stability of the mind and we become unruly and undisciplined. And it is as if usually we're very intelligent and thinking people, right? But when the anger comes up, it hijacks our intelligence and now we just become like a dodos, and the whole our complexion changes. Usually we have a very sweet, smiling nature, kind of very sociable, likable, attractive. Now we really look like, ugly,
제도 nga dhiji jambi so da nga dhiji jambi be kadi shibu sheza kadi shibu ina la in tizu sol goya tinge ene be kedang shiwo res ta dewa karsa ndu ta dhiji shiyo de papa ma phama ziwo ra so phama shiwo loji bombo yor ba 제도 kadi je ni khondro kadi je ni ne dire soya shiwo res ene so gawa yun zahi de so ro ro ji shina ene ko be khondro sa kanzo suine ene ko yugjan yun ma ko rawa chi do wa so ro de shi gre so ro ene bon de jimbe de jang me de wa so ba de da be ji yagbo shena la ko de pe me do sha ni de me de ta yo wa se ya ji mo be chebal wa jo ma re ro di so sha gre so ro o di so.
Of course, anger depends on varies in terms of intensity, right? When anger really kind of picks up, then it becomes hatred, And when we are, under the influence of hatred, shedang in Tibetan, then we really can get mad and lose our intelligence, thinking power, and we might even go to the extent of killing, those who have been extremely kind to us, And there are many stories, as we already know, that among those people who have been most kind to us are our parents. So due to hatred, there are many stories how we ended up killing our parents or killing our best friends or whatever the case may be, And also anger really destroys our interpersonal relationships as well, And, people who come to know of our angry nature, they said, what, yeah, you are a difficult person to deal with, Better to be at a distance than come too close to you, right? That's how it is. There's interpersonal distance happens because of anger, and also people started to develop this aversion to us. Even if we try to be nice and helpful sometimes, but what they remember is you're an angry person. So they're kind of like, yeah, you got an attitude. I'm kind of a little bit, yeah. I am, I'm grateful to your help and support, but I just can't deal with your anger. I'm just kind of fed up now. Aversion to each other.
junjule sheda sungu semjane yini ne hewa nyam gal dewa medola yini me yimi wonji temen jor kanda no de kude tingi jinle tenjor ba tida jane ngar de jebon de la sever go te da shi jo an jor jibe de jang teme shi don choa de neba tenen ga yo ma she so da di da de pe ni ma shu sa de kong di jun yo do wa ko ni da da de ga shu sa ge ti de do.
So the things that Geshe has just explained, these are substantiated by citations from Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Shantideva's Junju, engaging in the deeds of Bodhisattvas, Bodhisattva Char Avatar, on page 158. And so I quote, "In the grasp of mental pains of hate, your mind does not experience peace. You do not find joy or happiness. Sleep does not come, and you become unstable. Even those who depend on a master who cares for them with wealth and services will overcome and kill a master who gets angry. His anger disheartens friends. Though he gathers people with gifts, they will not serve him. In brief, no angry person is happy," unquote.
Oh, yes. Da jera le ja 그래서 계란에 장 처음에 신의 냠주는 예예예 사무들에 다 가지 콘도사잖아. 애니디 그래서 남주기 그 동욱이 그게 세계로도 냠으로 그랬어.
So,
이 얘도 두어야 보고 얘도 다는 그 성분한 거라서 그 돈나고 얘는 그 다스고요 말아. 지시거라. 매도 사무다라 예면 주세. 제대로 대세지보다 가가 대변소 연결지나 인거 콘도디 숙제벌려서 얘는 야기부 동안에 된 거 말아. 콘도 그런 된거 주시거라. 초에 승이 샘도 중에 저스데와다 초에 콘도 사제서 인디그 샘메데 샤니 이 중에 소아동에 샤거와 그 샤거레스 달에 펜비 돈도 달라 펜비 돈도 예결신스 다 소설 펜 남주 펜다 그 미드도 그 텔렌도 가가 지에네 예결데 초에 동네세 lamgen zhuwa xie, chua de tundu le nyam ta de xie da choye dong ni ko choye dong da di chua di on di jo ne lamgen sa na ta namji ko je wa do ya bo yina en ko je wa me ga shu do ko wa di lamgen xie de es ta namji ko me au de do chak ti xie ma sa bo da me tunung do ya bo yina chua da tundu ba le nyam ba jo ko namji ya bo se ne pi ti 가게 샤셔서 이 코드도 들이시다 사들이시되나 인티 작업 강한 양도 그랬어 봐. 그래서 나와 마중어신 빼냐면 나와 다 건지 가 돌되나 나와 망문 하이신 코그 연대 샤강가 영도가 마 양도 그랬어 봐. 자시다 그래도 쭉쭉장 최 미리 양살 동안 줄스 자시다가 쪽저서 다 소도 가버지부터도 그게 랍잔 좀 자지 퀄리 타기시 디제 시나 에디 페마도 시네고 엔다 초에 미리 양살 동안 줄데 다 그만이 인자다디 양살 동안 시티인게 다 겨와시마 에디 용점에도 말해야 돼와 다디 마동이 미지 모도와 펜도 never similar lo냐네 페이지를 예시 셈니 몽버줄 시 제가 펜 토야 never 제가 샤와시어버도 묘 바로 어떻게 그게 제야 그 남지 로그가 냠니 엔 심비 몽바샤니 세기 속이 메어서 샤워로 다가지 쳔다 다들 예갑도 쳔도 이 가지 얘는 뒤에 가 살로 먹어 셔네 에는 그거 먹어야 되는데 토야 토한지 시나 되게 템기 등이 예바티 소도 로가 들이나 그 상고 그거 말아. 어째서 되게 중요해요. 있어요.
So we are on page 158. We have long citations from Jataka Mala, or garland of birth stories of Buddha. And Geshe's explanation pertains to that long citation. And so we continue with the faults of anger. So what is stated in this Jataka Mala is that, as we actually mentioned this before, usually you look like a very kind of a friendly person, kind of very likable, kind of a social butterfly maybe, and everybody loves Raymond. They didn't say that, but I have to throw that in. That's who you are. But as you get angry, it really changes your beauty complexion into. Now you look like really a bit of a monster. The Lamrim didn't say that, but now you look not beautiful anymore. And you could be wearing the best dress and the ornaments, right? But if you get mad, it spoils the whole thing. Your jewelry does not bring any beauty to you now. Now you really look really bad, contrasting. Beautiful jewelry, angry person. The paradox. Look at that. Right? Just so that's what the problem is. And maybe you have a very comfortable bed. Maybe you have the king size, the queen size bed. The Lamrim doesn't mention those beds, but you have a comfortable bed. Okay, And if you're angry before you go to sleep, right, you cannot enjoy your bed, and your wonderful mattress, you just can't sleep properly. There is that problem. And of course, whatever peace and joy before the anger arose in your mind you had, you just lose everything. And now your mind is disturbed, and you experience suffering, pain, unpleasant feelings, we call it, so when we really get angry, really our thinking faculty somehow is hijacked, that now we even forget others' kindness to us. People who have been really kind and stood by us, now we get angry, we just don't remember their kindness, and we might even hurt them, and that's why under the influence of the anger, we could do the, dumbest things. Also, maybe you are very well educated, you are a very civilized human being, in general. When the anger takes over your mind, you are no more civilized. It doesn't look like. You doesn't look like an educated person, And whatever good reputation you have built, for a long time, now that reputation is damaged, So, if you think about your impression management, now that's what it is. It is gone. And the other people who care about you, they may try to give you advice and try to help you to think properly. You have no ears to listen to them. You are non-responsive. You are just reactive. You are not proactive at all. So usually you have the ability to think, good and bad, beneficial and harmful, everything. Now, when you are mad, looks like you don't know the difference. You're so numb. You look like a zombie. You just can't think anymore. You really look like the most ignorant person here. Just don't know what the distinction between good and bad, right and wrong, fair and unfair. You just, you are a dodo-head. And maybe usually you are really very mindful of the laws of the land, so to speak. Now, when you get married, you have no, regard for the laws, right? You will go and do the, most horrible things, violating all the rules and regulations. So this is how, anger causes so much trouble in our life. And then, of course, as we talked about, invisible outcome is in your next life. It's not a bright future. You will be in bad migrations, and go deal with it. Well, the Labrim didn't say that, but yeah.
Any Yanson case, Mutame, Yanson case, degrees. So the details on the never Chibu, never Chibu, any Carbe, Shatney, a day, like Jesus, so going at that be cut the Yemen. So the Suya, so much Chibu, dodging and that, Chidang dodging, the tea never contract the show. Tea daddy, tell Lavania show more. So the details on the toy non daddy that is so going to get slow daddy. That contract the non daddy or the door. She does she in a tea, turning toy that gives you services. She has the control now be for the gay with the Geshe in the shall go more service in the door. Kadina going with the car, copy of Johnny Mills, Tavi Sugar, Konyam don't watch in it. Till Yaba, Karza, eat there and what did your mother?
And so the last two kind of stanzas on page 158, bottom, still from the Garland of Bird Stories, where it stated, as Geshe explained, we really should do our best not to get habituated with getting angry. If we let it happen once, we let it happen twice, and then we get used to it. Once it becomes a habit, it's very hard to change that habit, and it's very easy to come under the influence of anger and do a lot of negativities. So we don't want to catch that bad habit from the beginning. because anger is real enemy that we have. Right? Not only it causes so much trouble in this life, but in our next future life, we will have to stay unimaginably long time in bad migrations. And so in that sense, this inner enemy we have, which is called anger, is the real deal. Usually we are so much caught up with these external enemies. External enemies, at the most, they can harm us is they can kill us, right? And that's all it. They cannot, make us be reborn in bad migrations. They don't have that power ability. But if we let the anger pop up, it not only harms in this lifetime, it harms even more in our future lives, right? So in that sense, anger is much more serious enemy than the external enemies that we usually think, and deal with. So understanding that, we should be mindful of what's happening inside us, and don't let the anger to pop up. Don't take a neutral stand to the anger. Anger comes up, just kind of watch it. No, don't be patient with anger. Because then anger thrives. We really have to take the opportunity, seize the opportunity to counteract anger. Right? That's our job. Our job is not to befriend anger and support, his whole mission and the vision and whatever, thing. Our job is to prevent him from arising in our mind, and should it arise, we should deal with it and, subdue it.
这是提到了说，你们呢，初二兄啊，你把电不你都个嘛，小伙子提到了说嘛，他是中央提纲，在控制性里边说。你现在老师个的现在3万知道不？听多了都别说多个样知道不？在第三个是过到蒙古样了吧？我第一三个当呢，可是看他控制的当呢，是基本都要问都上的，比个也把你跑的三个当公布的是吧？
So at the bottom of page 158, it is stated that we should really seriously contemplate the faults of anger, to the extent that we really develop conviction in the fact, reality, that anger is destructive here and hereafter, right? And we should, we can do that considering in every possible ways the outcomes of the anger, right? We think in terms of breaking the laws of the land, how consequential that's going to be, right? We could put behind the bar for life, or we could even be killed. And then we can think about the spiritual consequences of anger, how it is so destructive of our virtue and makes our future so bleak. So think about all these possible ways, and until we develop the conviction that, yes, I will do everything possible not to get angry, and should it arise, I'm going to deal with it immediately, right?
Gomacha, Tata Juju, Sedan, the women served the got the material in the Nazo Chi, Gomachi, somebody, Pin the Nimu, Tom, down last, so got the money, Seva Gomal, and the toss. Or this, that didn't usually come road, she don't have the Guamis, consider on the Kidamigo among your Tina Tudu, she should any head on the race. Sabata Kato Miss Kato Sanga Durigani, Chia Yamare Kari, Durija started among ways, the Delicato Seva Kato said, Chul Kato Shia, the way the Kanjita Kato Shis, because the Simjin Madu Kato Shia, the Roa, Sabata Kato Miss. There still a needed Nozo Chi, Gomba Chas, the Cheda, Kodo Nashi, Digosham of the Yamari, Seva Naji Pig, that Tichamudi beyond that way. Kato pretty soon, Seven hit in the Kato Yomari. Said, Kony because Sebe Kato down, Kodu Nimin because that took children to Kareto Tani. In the intimacy of Seva Gongo.
So on top of page 159, we have a stanza quoted from Bodhisattva Shantideva Mahadeva's engaging in bodhisattva deeds, a very popular stanza which is quoted often in this context, and I quote, "There is no sin like hatred, there is no negativity like hatred, and no fortitude like patience. Therefore, earnestly cultivate patience in a variety of ways," unquote. So as Geshe explained, that we have many kinds of afflictive emotions or nyurmo, glaciers, right? Among them, anger or the hatred is the most destructive. So we should realize that. So we can't cave into anger or hatred. Among all kinds of fortitude or penance that we do, hardships that we put up with, patience is the best of all fortitude. And in every possible way, consider the merits and advantages and the benefits of cultivating patience, and the limitations and the demerits and the force of the anger. We should do best to cultivate patience, up the patience, down the anger. That's what we should do.
강바 당부 기제는 중에 야조 전부 상장제 생예바 메네바다 대단남이 남바 멤베 상예바 메니소 디체 대다라 리부 이디모와 펜바다 요 네바 시베 디고니 미즈바 현쇼디 요요 마이노스 디 강바 당부 동세야디 해당답 디고 미세 코르메기가 디고 미세가 가레세나 니 해당 남이 디바텔라 데레스벤 자즈셰보 그 쇼디야 당도 다 목조 요조 제기 주제는 차가제 가세도 따야요 말와 어디 체시하면 니 해당 디 남이 디 다가스 양그레센 세송도 말이지 어디지
So we're still on top of page 159. There is sort of a commentary on Shantideva's that particular stanza by great Indian master Chandrakirti. That's taken from his supplement to the middle way of Madhyamik Avatar. And according to Geshe's explanation, how does Chandrakirti explain this particular line? There is no sin or negativity like hatred. What does that mean? According to Chandrakirti, the ripening effects of this anger as a karma are just immeasurable. We cannot measure its intensity. And the example given is like, if we take this project to measure how much water is in the Pacific Ocean. Well, they didn't say Pacific Ocean, with a cup or a mug, whatever, right? We are going to just, take out cups of water and say, I want to see how much water is in the ocean. We will never be able to do that, right? So in the same way, it would be really difficult to measure the ripening effects of anger. It is that detrimental and serious.
그래서 셰송 받다 인데서 남이 이도 체원 지행장 예자 무슨 디바 시험을 꼭다 코르데 내가 인식하라 예자 줘야 제시 남이 이도 엔지니어 인식해서 시대 거의 배 인도 시대다 인데시다 그 잡셔버렸어 그래서 많이 싫어 원래 남이 잡셔왔라 체원 지바당 예자 줘봐 니가 소비 니미 니 해던리 해봐양 해발라만데 다다다 해던 그게 게자 좀 그래스라 비케우잖아 아니 니모 현다 디바 현다 게자 좀 말이서 어디데 खोजो 말이서 그래서 그다 텔 해봐 게자 좀게 요레스 가리어서나 아니 주딜 거 왔다 봐세 아니 답에 쇼봉하세 저 저주 선생님들 라마라서 발라 체제 체주 시바세 ene karsa che ngaje ba so de labdi li sheba shawo se da labdi di jize shawale labdi se di zero ata nimi ge de labdi sheba so di sheba res je da di karsa nande deja da jidang bege mega mambo ya mega mambo da dari di ini shedan de ge da je da ini dibi mo ninga je ba sheya 니무 해다 되겠다. 그러나 그게 남이 미가 저 뭐지 예자 좀 매매로 삼 되게 더 보이기로 하고 어디 스카야 당달래. 어디 콘도면에 예자 좀 먹어야 돼. 쉬운 걸 내다. 이 길을 고아디아서 라말 자좀 채워도 어디 가 자좀 매워도 어디 먹어야 돼. 어디 쓰게.
In the middle of page 159 we have as Geshe explained, the anger is how should I say, extremely detrimental afflictive emotion, kind of like a double jeopardy, if you can put it that way, that in one way, it generates or will produce this tremendous ripening effect in our next life. And on the other hand, it destroys so much of our virtue, right? So it is bad on two accounts, right? Not only it produces its bad result, but then it destroys, many virtues. So that's a serious matter. Having said that, then, we must not think that anger is the only delusion or affective emotion that destroys virtue. But there are other negativities that could also destroy virtue as well. And if you ask for some examples, here are the examples. As Geshe explained, if we cast aspersion onto the infallibility of law of karma and outcomes, right? Basically, we reject it, right, willingly, completely. That kind of a negativity or delusion can destroy virtues as well. Or that we abandon dharma, right? One of the serious karmas, like abandoning dharma. Now that can destroy virtues. Or that we badmouth bodhisattvas and the gurus, right? We how should I say, undermine their significance. That can destroy virtues. Or that we become arrogant in relation to someone we don't know is a bodhisattva. That arrogance can destroy virtue. So there are other negativities or delusions that could destroy virtue as well. So we have to be careful with that. So these things are mentioned by Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva in his other wonderful work called Compendium of Bodhisattva Trainings, or Shiksha Samuksha, Labakundu, right?
da karsa da konru yimi sayade sebe pin sayade da tuzu da yimi tuzu 통주 yimi tuzu da ganza pen rishi jas mise ma gange ganze ha gu de wa da samlo ko mo ko jiro wa shede de konru yimi gange ha gu da ha gu ezo ha gu ge koya ji gu pen do yo ma da je ko de je de ga ya ta bi xia de kan ji de xie yang yang sem ri gu ro wa 是空手呢，人看着牛主要就开始的，出现的主要本身就在这种啊，开始留下写的就是可能怕各个了这个就参加的比较重要的了。但给外说的别生活的上休息的，这都估计是他家住不了了吧？我的空不给着的了吧？现在他估计被样样全部的是不开心不的是。
So as Geshe explained, that lots of the visible outcomes of anger are something really, in one sense, we don't need explanation, right? We ourselves can understand that, how much problems anger causes in our life. But then, it's just like intellectual understanding. So that's why it's not good enough. We really need to contemplate, those negative visible outcomes of anger, so that we develop this certainty that I must cultivate patience, right? Patience is much more beneficial and should not let anger to take over me. So this really, we have to do the cultivation practice and develop that habit, Once we cultivate the positive habit, as the habit kicks in, that will make a big difference, isn't it? Because right now, maybe intellectually, we know how anger is destructive in our life, many things. Then it just still we get angry, right? We just let it happen. Why? Because we got more habituated with anger than the patience. So patience is weak, anger is up, so we get angry. We know we shouldn't, then we do get angry, And so that's why cultivating the right kind of habit of patience is very, very important. And as Geshe said, right now, if we check with our own state of being, we have so much familiarity with afflictive emotions, the three poisons, isn't it? Even the best of our effort is so difficult to subdue attachment, subdue anger, or even overcome ignorance, isn't it? Because we have so much habit with it. It's just like with the best of human effort, again, there you go, right? But when it comes to doing the positive virtue thing, even we struggle so hard, right? that it doesn't seem to make much impact, right? Because we have a less habituation with the positive thing. So we need to increase our positive power, right, habit, and decrease the negative habits. This is how we are going to win, right? Over anger and other afflictive emotions. So that's our task as practitioners, to cultivate positive qualities such as patience.
我这里觉得，变得在控制你们随便培养都是先联想吧，联想呢，那控制些，什么公司些那个先不考嘛就出下了吧。我觉得他的或者先不得老人大的，感觉可以，看啥，随便话，也随时写的吧，以前的培养的，因为那边的他农村要别，控制那边的那边看啥，菜村要别看啥。 기다다 네가 메시아디 시드단다 왜 체조 왜 간지 타동사 명기인데 어디에 셰 얘네 빈 가자 남이 되데 셰 얘네 계산 중이야 셰 어디에서 좀더 연대 간지 세배 표현다 되데 따니 얘네 뭐지 간지 네바 통야 좀 지금 딱 간지 잘다 간지 다이 세바 뭐로 하자 코도 뉴로 유자 딱 그게 검대는 따바르지 얘들 코로 좀 다 세배는 삼대는 코로 뉴로 그러와 먼저 배는 대자 코로 다 거다와리 거 연대도 다 되어 있었고 남산 배 얘는 전부 채는 남산 흙들 동은 거와 그래서 다 먼저 계획서 더 도움도 어디 먼저 만지잖아 디 지구를 쓰도 어디 배는 데스워와 가르사 소소 녀면서 그 락레마다나 얘네 그게 네바드비나 얘네 디가 맨 나자들 케벨 맨 가리 팽기에 얘네 현달에 비게 ចេញ는데 왜 가리 팽기 맨 가리 팽기는 가가 하고 오시 얘네 거맨 가게 샤샤 마세 되잖아 그걸 타야 와라 어디도 집어서도 와 그래서 맨지 라바장이 니스 네바타 팽기로 잡아 리긴다 지야바 샤시 책도 뭐 지기샤 중주 누가 그래서 가지 칼날은 팽도 말이지 가지 칼을 나와서 이제 락렌다고 그래서 뒤에 그래서는 그 맨지 라네 나자들 데 팽기에서다 근데 강가 현서는 얘는 네발 팽거를 왜 쓰고 그러와 매서 무거지요
So Geshe is really emphasizing for each one of us to really cultivate patience and think about all the faults of anger and try to decrease and minimize anger, right? This really practice cannot be overemphasized, right? The fact that even though we are intelligent enough to know about many problems with anger, still it happens in our life. This is because nothing else, because of our habituation with anger and our, how to say, less habituation with patience. Now we want to change that habit pattern, isn't it? So we want to develop more habit with the patience and change the habit with anger. So we cannot overemphasize the cultivation practice if we want to make a difference. Right? Difference has to be made within our mind. It is the inner transformation, not the external thing. So that requires effort. That requires practice, cultivation practice. As Geshe has beautifully quoted a stanza of Bodhisattva Mahashantideva from his memory, and he was giggling over that. What it is that as Shantideva said, as we study Dharma, once we learn about it, we need to walk the talk. Talk is useless, he said. Walk the talk, right? That requires practice. And so the example he gives us is like, somebody wants to develop this expertise in medicine treatment, right? So you learn everything well, then you never practice it. So what's the use of that whole medical knowledge, you mean? Because you never practice it. It's just like, well, this medicine works for that one, and then you never practice it, right? Or you could do the patients. We know, well, this is good for my kidney, that's for the diabetes, and then you never take the medicine. You just kind of know about it, right? That's useless knowledge, you mean? If your sickness needs to be treated, you better take the right medication. So in the same way, if we want to make a difference within ourselves, we need to practice. We just can't only learn about things and stay at the intellectual level. Yeah, this is that, that's that. Patience is good, anger is bad. And we have so much to say about that. And they're like, okay, I can theorize about that. I can give a lecture on that. But then it comes to practice, zippo. Geshe didn't say that. So that doesn't help. Our whole purpose of learning Dharma is to make a difference through practice, not to learn for the sake of learning, to develop some kind of an expertise, to brag about.
어디 대다 단다 라마스 숭유 되도가 가르사 람르다 쉐카레네 베 몽고 쇼그스 양양 쇼그스도 그 양양 쇼스디전 다고 해야되게는 해도로 그 레레키도 제조를 그랬다 뭐로 제조 차차신 이 냠냠도 때때 용어제 야야로 이 이시야도 간제 암조 차차도 셰도 이시야요 살와 뭔제도 라리사 로브 자나 로브 쇼지고서로 Gyeltsen think just be head in and go easy to this. Gyeltsen never shall read it. So this because you can't say.
So as Geshe said that our lamas, the lineage masters, have got this to say, they always encourage us to attain the teachings over and again, even the same teachings. The reason is that if we go to the same teaching so many times, we already know what they are going to talk about, right? But the good part is that it provides us the opportunity to think about the teachings that we already learned about. So it provides us the opportunity to familiarize more and more with the theme of the teaching. Good reminder, oh yeah, right? And that's why attending the same teaching 100 times is a way to cultivate that habit. Otherwise, you already know about those things. You heard in the teachings already. And so that's a good thing, repeating, right? Repeatedly attend the same teaching. Repeating our practice is a good way to do that, And if we repeat it, that has an effect. And Geshe was chuckling over this statement from Chairman Mao. And Chairman Mao is alleged to have said that just keep on lying. If you lie it 100 times, then pretty soon people think that's the truth of the matter, and they will believe you. Just keep on repeating the lie 100 times, and then people take it for truth. So that's how it is, And we, do over and again the same thing, attend the teaching, do the practice, then it builds the habit in us, and it's going to make the difference. Right. And so what I'm saying is that, it's not enough to understand things or develop the knowledge once, but we have to think about it over and again to cultivate the familiarity and the positive habit, So Geshe says, teaching like this on the perfection of patience is not really difficult to understand, isn't it? It's just a matter of are we going to put it into practice or not, right? There's less of misunderstanding. It's easy to teach. It's easy to talk about, right? It's not a difficult concept like talking about emptiness in the special insight section, which is tough for the teacher to explain it. It's such a difficult topic. It's so difficult for the listeners to listen it. There is every possibility that we really misunderstand the whole concept or don't communicate properly. Like, all those issues are there. But here, we don't have that. It's quite clear-cut about that. Patience and anger, the problem with the anger and the benefit of the patience. So now, in teachings that easy to follow like that, I think we should really, we have less excuse not to put it into practice, right? Because we know what it is. No.
동배 따도 샤무도 어디 봐도 가능이 쉬워져라 다다 먼저 딱해서 이 총아도 가고 보여가 용도 어디 개발 년다요 나고 또 보여는데 용게 어디서 뭐뭐직 되게 관제 야 동이 고들이야 때지 다기 제를 붙이고 세버 제를 맞아 지금 현코는 소문도 zor래 어디 동이 고들 배 논류 소리 먹고서 누가 제들이 양한테 다다 집에 피지다 기계를 보신 대로 정식sem다 동이 스디선 암주 정동시야 좀 말해 저도 동도시에 쉬우시고 그 동사 약간 많이 놓고 내가 열어 어디래
No. And so Gisela said, sometimes we have a tendency to kind of chase the most popular and high-sounding concept in practice. Like, everybody says, Partit Samudapad, Tendel, right? Wow, now I'm going to chase the dependent arising, or emptiness, right? Wow, that's a bandwagon we can all jump up onto, right? And but then we know, it's a very complex concept, isn't it? The dependent arising includes the notion of infallibility of law of karma and outcome. Now there is the challenge, isn't it? It's very difficult for us to understand, the subtleties of the karma. Then as we discuss more about it, started to become too abstract. Like, so. Then we might even become a nihilist, like, okay, this part is not making any sense. Like, I don't think it really exists, right? We might even reject certain aspect of the karma. It gets so abstract and so subtle, or like when we talk about dependent arising in terms of merely label, right? The tokpe taksam in Tibetan, right? Merely label. That is such a difficult thing to understand that as we talked about this in our special insight section on Lamrim, Lakdong, that even many great Tibetan masters of the ancient time, right, they were really super duper intelligent. Maybe they have also developed a certain amount of experience. When it came to emptiness, merely label, many of them failed to understand it, right? It doesn't matter how many times you repeat that nothing exists in or of itself, everything is merely label, like a mantra you recite. But down to the bottom line, everybody grasps at the intrinsic existence. Like, well, that's how it exists, merely label, but it really exists there, right? That's what it is, And even the greatest of some of the scholars of Tibet, right, they struggle with that, and then they theorize about it, and then their explanation is, there's a problem. You really did not understand merely label. Only when Lama Tsongkhapa came, I think he did the best job in terms of elucidating what is and what it is not, right? So those are, but then still, I think, in the West, Geshe said the tendency that, emptiness, well, sign me up for that teaching, or jump on that, or bodhicitta, I love that. And then other things like, yeah, I kind of know it, right? Knowing is good, that's where to start, not enough. We need to put into practice, practice.
我现在大初动着不是，现在几当个合计合在我们去的现在是我去过那些呢，合计别个干啥，讲着生意不经过了，讲着生意个已经没些别个累积的利息经过了吧？我基本能用来嘛了吧？现在的连这个现别个啥，科技是啥东西的，我在这心里上毕竟啥生基本开用嘛了吧？现在过年们都说是超过了吧？的现在他过些的。능에 가서 시험을 다다 소소 랑발베는 탑이시는 능에 용먹고 탑이 다다 시야요라 어디 도달이야 희워라 딱고 가르친다 용라 있네 이거 예와 능에 라는 말은 시험하기 능에 시험을 그라는다 용말와 다다디 이봐 야고지서는 능에 용먹고 소소 랑len다 주도 예와 능에 용먹고 어디 도달이 니 맞다도 된 속으로 어디 인지문지 이해하고 달라마 고마 관계 And
from practice point of view, as a Buddhist, where it all starts is the practice of going for refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And that is contingent upon our trust or the belief in the law of infallibility of law of karma and result, isn't it? Okay? And we all know how difficult it is, right, to have that trust, complete trust in the infallibility of karma and its results. So that's where, from the practice point of view, we may know so many other things above and beyond whatever, but If we still get stuck there, that's where we are stuck, And of course, so to be able to develop that trust in the infallibility of karma and its outcome, then we end up talking about the general suffering of the samsara, the particular suffering back matter. So now we talk so much about suffering, we just get numb, like, I'm just getting sick of it, isn't it? I mean, just like suffering, and then there's more suffering, and there's suffering. Okay, that's really not encouraging, inspiring anymore, right? We just give it up, But the whole point of talking about that is telling us this message that right now, you are not in bad migrations. It's all in your hand, right? So you can do something about that you don't have to suffer over and again the same thing in the next life, right? But once it happens, it happens. There's nothing you can do about it, right? In Buddhism, we never said that suffering is your destiny. Well, if it's destiny, we can't do anything. Just let it be, We will all go to hell forever. There's nothing we can do about it. So why even talk about it? Why discuss it? If we are going to destined to the hell, let it be. That's going to happen. But that's not the message. The message is, right now, we are not in the hell. We are not in the hungry ghost world. We are not in bad migration. We have been there many times. We just don't remember. Now, if you don't want to do that, change the course of the action. Change the direction. And that's what we are saying. It's all in your hand. That's why we talk about the suffering of samsara, so that we get fed up with it and we'll do something about it. So that's why Geshe wants to really emphasize where we need to do the practice and see the significance of teaching on suffering. Of course, emptiness is not something we should avoid. We have to make attempt to understand it and to realize it, right? I mean, that's the way to get out of the suffering. But understanding and realizing emptiness is also contingent upon accumulating a lot of merit, It's not just an intellectual exercise, Not to put the best of our brain to do the analysis and investigation and thinking part. That is required, but that must be backed up by the merit, right? Punya, sonam, isn't it? If we are lacking in the merit, our investigation becomes inadequate and it could also go in the wrong direction, right? That's not enough. That's why, as Geshe quoted from his memory, what a great Indian master called Aryadeva, he said, realization of emptiness is contingent upon the accumulation of merit, So that's very important. And the example Geshe has given is, if we want to cultivate a field, yes, we do need good seeds, right? Things grow from seeds, not out of, nothing. But the seeds alone are not enough, isn't it? The seeds must be conditioned by fertility of the soil, the appropriate season, water it. All these conditioning factors help to germinate the seed. If you just have a seed, it's dry seed. It's never going to germinate, isn't it? So if you only do intellectual thinking and analysis of emptiness, dependent arising, but never accumulate the merit, it's just like we are carrying a dry seed that's never going to germinate. It requires the water of virtue, merit, So please keep those things in our mind. So we are, somebody should really mark this page in case I lose it. We are volume number 2, page 159, and we stopped at the division of patients, or different types of patients, okay? So what Geshe wants to do is, next week he wants to go back to the special insight section, Laktong, okay? So we stop here. for the patient, we will return, another time. Okay, so please mark that. Now, I think today, we probably have to skip the question answer because we have few things to do. So first, I would like to invite Doran Harbour, who will say a few words on behalf of GSTDL. Especially for the monks who have served us for 2 years, and 2 of them are returning to the home monastery, right? So we want to express our gratitude to them.
I think that our 2 monks that have been here for the last several years have done an incredible amount of work for us. And one has just stepped away to make lunch for the monks. So anyway, I want to make an offering on behalf of Thupten Dargye Ling to the both of our attendant monks who are going to be departing back for India. And of course, Geshe, we thank you for all of the teachings that you've given us and continue to give teachings for us. And we really appreciate these many weekends of teachings that you've given for us, and also for the attendants, Venerable Losang Gyeltsen and Tenzin Gyeltsen, and also Tenzin Dorje, our translators. And so on behalf of Thupten Dargye Ling, Geshe Setter has
he went to pick off
to get our envelopes and katas that we want to give. So I don't know what I can say except that we really appreciate our loving monks that have been here and taking care of us, making the mandala offerings and taking care of the altar and taking care of the center and praying for us so many times, doing the tea offerings in the evenings, and taking care of Geshe. So important that our Sangha community here is strong and vibrant. And also, Geshe Tenzin Setter, our administrator, who's still going to be here for some time. But our 2 monks are leaving on the 5th of May. And today is their last Sunday teachings here, I believe. And so we're going to take today to make this presentation
Okay, let me
to them.
briefly translate in Tibetan. The thing the Karshur, Tangas de Kishla, Geshe, the Nigalo Lobsan, the Geshe Lobsan, the Losala, Ni de Anzolo, Niringa, the Shuche, Pemasi, Chosolia, and then 2 months of Shirachus, Larva, and then Losan and enemy that they making Suji Shan and Samalolia, Larva, the Kuleshra Kyore, Adana Kishalagni, the Takashore, Anzolia, and the Tangju Lane la Soba, Larva, Tunjian da, the Umzenai la Soba, Sira Kadin Chimboyins, Cesar, and Mazuk Tubdan Dajalin Chosok, Subshuje, Tamizo de Kinshu, and again, Tadabadanzoya, Shiragi Chuk, Kadin Chimonambre, and Tanda in the Mutune, Kadin Kanro Nas, Larva, that didn't Kuni Palo take you Basonza, and it took a label to Chosone, Tongming, Jeda, Chadachi, those pure ins, and then. Alle kjenner ikke kul.